Welcome to The Global Girlfriend.
Shall we book a flight to Kuala Lumpur?
Yep.
All right, hey everyone. We are the Global Girlfriend. My name's Morgan,
And my name's Brianna.
and we are a podcast that's all about travel, connection, living abroad, and all the topics that go into that. And today's episode, we're going to talk about travel first and transformations and, how the journey has changed us, which is an essential topic, I'd say. So we're going to talk about different firsts. It could be anything from first solo trips, first backpacking trips, just notable, breathtaking moments, and how those moments have transformed us. Because not to be super cheesy, but it's not just about the place, but how the places have shaped us. So we're going to get going on that topic. Okay, so we love stories on the Global Girlfriend, and I think that's such a good way to kind of just share and connect. And so let's start with a couple stories. Brenna, do you have a story in mind that like is a first maybe like aha moment or something that shaped you that comes to mind?
Totally. So I mean, doing anything for the first time, I think can always be a little bit awkward or a little bit uncomfortable. And I was reflecting on this, and the very first solo trip I actually ever did, I think I was like, I don't know, maybe 22 or 23. And I took a solo trip to Ethiopia, which is an absolutely wild place to go for your first
Wait,
solo.
that's amazing. I didn't know this. Okay.
Yeah, so I did a solo trip to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia in my early 20s, and it was a crazy experience. I want to say that I loved it. I'm not sure that I did. I think it was a bit scary, to be honest. I think just, traveling solo, really, we've talked about this a lot. It really puts you out of your comfort zone. And so I was definitely out of my comfort zone in this moment. It was a cool trip. Like, I enjoyed exploring the city. I went to this like massive market. I saw some live Ethiopian jazz. Like, there was a lot of cool things
Oh,
about the
jazz.
trip. But in general, I was like just a little bit uneasy the whole time. I'm glad that I
Hmm.
did it because I think that it made other solo trips feel much easier. But I just remember there was like this one specific moment. So Addis has like I think it might be the biggest market in Africa, possibly. And it's just massive. Like, there's 5 kilometers worth of spice stalls, and then there's 2 kilometers worth of home goods stores, and then like a kilometer worth of coffee shops. Like, it's amazing. It's really cool. But it's literally huge. It's spiraling. You could get so lost. And I just remember, like, I don't know, little 22 or 23-year-old me just like sitting there, drinking a coffee and being like, wow, I am but a small fish in a very big pond.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was cool, but I do think like my first solo trip was amazing, but also like a little bit uneasy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can imagine. That's I mean such like a very distinct place to go on a first solo adventure. So that's awesome. Um do you feel like these thoughts are ones that you felt in the moment when you were there, or is this kind of like upon reflection, here is my take of my solo trip to Ethiopia?
I think I think they're more like upon reflection thoughts. I think honestly in the moment I was just like quite shell shocked. I was just, like
Yeah.
eyes open, everything new. I think like it was really fun. Like, don't get me wrong, I did like really enjoy it. Beautiful, beautiful city. I felt very safe. I think, in the moment, I think I was kind of just like, wow, okay, here we go. It was almost like, you're on the roller coaster. You don't have time to think about what's going on. You just kind of are on for the ride. And then I think, years later, reflecting on it, one, I'm like, dang, girl, that was brave. Good for you. um, but then also, now that I've gone on solo trips, and I'm a little bit better at it now, that have been less in your face and less stressful, I'm like, okay, I'm glad I had that experience. I'm super glad that I had it. But definitely, upon reflection, I can say that solo travel has gotten easier over time.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have
Okay.
a first moment? Was there a first that really stands out in your mind?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say my backpacking trip to Europe after university, I went with one of my best friends, Danny, and we did like a month long and with just our backpacks. We had matching ones actually, and we did a month and we like hit a bunch of different countries. And it was I had been abroad before, but this was the first time kind of like by ourselves, like our itinerary, we planned it, no tour or like group we're with, but like just us. And it was such a great it's such a great memory of that first backpacking trip that you do. Like you're a young adult with one of your best friends, and but I was in a bit of an interesting moment of my life. I was going through, like I was in a really like sad moment of like heartbreak and relational stuff, and so it was this weird kind of like there's life is always this balance, this contrast of different things existing together, but it was like this like young 20s, we just finished university, like so excited, the world is ours, like, and we're silly, so we're like having a silly time, like singing jingles that we're creating in every country,
Yeah.
but also like this like deep sadness of like, because I feel like we've talked about this, I'm a big believer of like people think, oh, you like move abroad or go on a trip and you have a new life and you don't bring any of this stuff with you, but it comes with
Nope.
you, and even on trips. And so I remember just being like also this like really a little bit heavy and journaling a bunch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was this like kind of like heavy time of like processing things. Also it was a big transitional moment of leaving university on to the next chapter, not sure what I was going to do, but also excitement. So, but it was, I mean, one of my favorite trips because it was a first and it was kind of one of those aha trips that like opened me up even more to the world, you know?
I I love that. That's really beautiful. What do you feel like that trip sort of like inspired you to keep traveling, or like what did that trip sort of like spark in you?
Oh, yeah. Um, it definitely, it definitely inspired me to keep traveling. I have different stories of different trips that were very distinct of like, this is the trip that made me know that I wanted to live abroad. This was the trip that made me know that I wanted to live in Europe. But this trip was just, it was just like whimsical, where it just inspired me to like, I don't know, live a life of like pursuing dreams and adventure, you know? So,
I love that. That is so that's so beautiful.
ah, yes. We love those stories. Um,
Oh,
go
no,
ahead.
so, well, I was gonna say, I feel like that kind of, like, brings us into, like, sort of the next thing that I wanted to talk about was, like, joyful firsts or, like, moments of joy, because sometimes, obviously, like, the first time you get lost or the first time you get scammed and, like, whatever, we can talk about those eventually, like, there are sometimes some negative firsts that you experience in
Mhm.
travel, but I wanna focus on, like, the joyful first. Do you have, like, I don't know, the first time you saw a waterfall, or like, do you have like a joyful moment where you were like, "Oh, this is just like an absolute, I would have never experienced this at home and I'm filled with so much joy now that I'm here."
Yeah. Okay. I want to share two, if that's okay.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, just a quick one. It was right after I graduated high school. I had signed up to work at a camp. It's called a Young Life. It's called Young. The organization is Young Life, and they you just sign up to do it. You don't know what your job will be or what state you'll be in, and then if you get accepted, they just assign you and say your assignment are these dates. You'll be doing this job in this place, and so I
Cool.
got assigned. Yeah, and I think that also was a huge part of this like longing for adventure and change and like
Yeah.
doing uncomfortable things. But so I got assigned in this small town in Colorado in Buena Vista at this camp. And I remember it was like after the first week of campers that came through, and then we have, like a day or two where we can just chill. And I remember, and I'm like in the mountains, and I remember it was nighttime, and like we could be in the hot tub, and love a hot tub, and I remember just being in the hot tub. It was our day off in the mountains, so it's like crisp air, and just looking at so many stars. And I remember just being like, this is what it's all about, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one of those aha moments. And then just the other story was I, when I was teaching in Texas, it was one of my spring break, and my trip changed last second where I was doing a solo trip to Europe. And so I ended up changing my plans because I didn't want to go where I was going, just me. So I was like, Paris it is. And so went to Paris, and it was one of those trips that um so many things aligned. Like I was like able to stay with a friend in college, and she lived in Paris, and getting to like experience it with someone who lives there, and also do my own thing. And then so many different people in my life, like from really good friend to like a friend of a friend, was around, and like got a coffee with this person. And then it was
Yeah.
just so many things aligned where, and that's the trip that I alluded to earlier, where I knew like I have to live in Europe at some point. So
Oh,
that
I
was one
love
of those.
that.
Yeah, those are kind of my like
I love
positive
that.
aha stories.
I feel like Paris is, I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time really at all in Paris, but I feel like Paris is literally one of those magical cities. Like I know people who have serendipitously like run into people from back home in Paris. Like I feel like I don't know, that city
Oh,
has
that's
something
amazing.
magic about it that just like really brings people together. Like I believe it. I believe in the magic of Paris.
Oh,
Um
I also believe in the magic of Paris.
but no, those are two like beautiful stories, and I think that, sometimes when you're at home, and it's the reality of it. Sometimes, you get stuck in this like grind, or you get stuck in your routine, and it really sort of just takes one sort of moment outside of your regular thing to just take a step back, and when you look at the world, you're like, "Oh my god, it's amazing out here. Like I have to see more of it."
Having new experiences and travel and adventure is just one brings these aha moments that really shape us, but also it like is something that helps slow time down, and I think it just overall makes us more full rounded humans, you know.
I I totally agree, and I think it is so beautiful, and I think, like, honestly, anytime I feel depressed, usually, like, this is a ridiculous thing to say, but, like, if I like feel depressed, or if I feel sad, or if I feel stuck in things, like, honestly, the best thing you can do is go outside, switch up your routine, like, see something new.
Mhm.
It's that whole touch grass phenomenon, but you need to do it for
Yes.
sure.
Oh,
So
for
my
sure.
moment of my moment of like aha
Yes.
joy, that I really want to share. It was, so when I moved to Albania, there was like that changed a lot for me, to be honest. It's like how I found my career. It's how I found a group of lifelong friends. It's how we met. So a lot of great things happened when I first moved to Albania. But we had a break in October, and I went for a hike with three friends, and you and I have done this hike as well. It's the Valbona to Theth pass. Basically, it's a big long
Yes.
hike between two villages. You climb up over this huge beautiful mountain, and for me there was a lot of firsts on that trip. It was my first trip, like, really to the north of Albania. But that was also the first hiking trip I had ever done. Like, I had gone on hikes before, but like I had never traveled with the intention to hike. So it was
Yeah.
my very first hiking trip. And to be honest, like, I didn't know how I felt about hiking. I thought I didn't like hiking. And I remember we did this trip. There was four of us. It was me and Ian and Jesse and Dana, and we, like, started in Valbona. We did the whole hike. We got to the top, and I just remember being at the top, like at the top of the pass, and looking out. And if you've ever, I don't know, been to the top of a mountain, like, the views from up there are absolutely incredible, and the leaves were changing, and you're up so high,
Uh,
and like you can see all of the peaks and all of the rocks, and it's just so beautiful. And I remember just like looking out and thinking, like, "Oh my god, the world is like so beautiful. The mountains are so beautiful." Like, I had never really seen mountains before. Like, I had seen a mountain, but not like mountain ranges. And I just remember also being like, "Wow, I really like hiking." And
yeah.
so I like for me, that was just an incredible, like there was a lot of firsts there. And it just really sort of like, as you know, you and I went on a bunch of different hikes. Like it really sort of sparked
Mhm.
this like love for hiking within me and a love for mountains. Like I didn't know that I love mountains, and
Mhm.
they're just so stunning. They're so, so beautiful. So that was just such a moment for me where that really changed things.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love hearing that story and like being able to like envision that scene because yeah, like being in like completely immersed in that moment at the top of the mountain, surrounded by mountains, like crisp air, like I could see how it just is so impactful. And I'm also so thankful, like it's funny because I associate like you and like our friendship, like, we're I feel like we're like very similar level skiers. So we love to ski together and like we've done a lot of
Yeah.
hikes together. And I feel just like so thankful to get to like have those experiences with you as you have this like transformative like hiking relationship with mountains, like you know what I mean? Like
I I
and
had
that's
never thought about that, but like I love that. We are mountain girlies.
mountain and sheep. We love the sheep herds.
We love a sheep. So let's talk a little bit about like how these firsts like have transformed us. Do you have like another example of how the first time you did something shaped a thought that you have, or shaped how you approach travel or anything like that?
Yeah. So I do have a story that comes to mind, but it's not a first, but it is like one of those stories that kind of like shaped things for me.
Yeah.
And so I had done like I can't remember how many, but definitely a handful of solo trips through my
Hmm.
life. And it was actually the first year I lived in Albania. And like with timing, it didn't really make sense for me to go back home for Christmas. And so I was going to go spend it with a friend in
Yeah.
London. But I had already been to London and I was like, oh, like before I go to London, I want to kind of do something that I haven't done before. So let me do a
Yeah.
solo trip to Edinburgh. And
Yeah.
loved it, beautiful. But I don't know, it was one of those trips that I remember just like, which I love alone time, but it was one of those trips I remember just like sitting at a pub, this kind of like swanky little pub in Edinburgh, like having a pint. And I just had this like moment of like realization for myself, which side note, if you've listened to like our solo trips episode, like I 100% encourage solo trips. And like if you haven't done it, you have to. But I had done like quite a bit at that point. And I remember just sitting there and being like, I don't know if solo trips are for me anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't enjoy it's not because I can't or I don't enjoy solitude, but I just especially at that point of living far from a lot of people I loved, having friends all over the world, family super far, I just really felt like for my traveling and my trips, like I really want to use those experiences sharing it with people. Like,
Yeah.
and so um, that was just kind of one of those very memorable trips for me where I was like, if I can help it, like obviously I got to do what I got to do, but if I can help it, I want to travel with people I love for the rest of my
Yeah.
life. And so that
Aw.
was not a first, but like not a first solo trip, but like a very distinct trip for me that transformed me, I'd say. So,
Aw.
um,
Okay.
what about you? Is there one that like comes to mind?
Actually, yeah. So very it not similar, but I mean, it was a solo trip. And I think it was I took I've mentioned this before. I've taken quite a few solo trips to Italy. And
Oh, I love those ones for you.
I just remember like and I think it was my first, yeah, one of my first solo trips in Italy. And I think I was sitting and I was having a coffee and I was looking out at Lake Como, like eating a pastry, having a coffee. It was fall, like it was a bit cool. I had a
Mhm.
very nice fashionable jacket on. I
Yes.
was like, I was just like, I was having such a nice morning, and I was by myself. I had like gotten up early, taken a bunch of photos. I'm just really, taking in Lake Como in all of its beauty. And I was sitting there drinking this coffee. And this is like kind of a crazy thing, but I just remember thinking like I can create such an amazing life for myself. Like it was my sort of first solo trip in Italy where I realized like I can create such an amazing life for myself. I, used my paycheck to buy this experience for myself. Like, I'm so happy right now. Life is so beautiful. Like, this is such an incredible opportunity. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I would rather be here by myself than like with some man who could never plan a date like this, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I just like I was at a point where I was just really thinking like, you know what, if I want a partner, if I'm going to have somebody in my life, like they need to be able to like also sort of create this experience. And like if I can
Yeah.
make this much of an amazing life for myself, I don't want to have anybody else in my life unless they can also reach this bar. And that was like a huge sort of realization for me because I think, you know, obviously as women in our 20s and 30s, we are sort of always thinking about, you know, what's next in our life and in our romantic journeys
Hmm.
and this sort of thing. But literally sitting there, drinking this coffee, looking out at Lake Como, I was like, I don't need anybody else. And I don't want anybody else unless they can sort of like meet me here at Lake Como having a coffee. um,
Yes, 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 yes. And like
and
absolute contentment, like pure
yeah,
bliss.
yeah, it was amazing, and so that was like a really big realization for me. So yeah, so that was really nice, and I think that sort of like, you know, transformed how I approach dating, how I approach solo travel, how much I value my life and the experiences I can create for myself. So that was awesome.
Ah, that is beautiful. Okay, I love how we both shared an example of these like solo trips and how they transformed us in like beautiful but very different ways.
Yeah,
But then I'm like taking a message away. I'm like, okay, well, everyone needs to go on a solo trip at some point because you're gonna learn lessons about yourself. Because you're gonna have that time to be able to reflect with your
yeah.
cup of coffee, looking over a lake, or at a pub with a pint. Like, I
Pint
just feel
at
like
Christmas
they are
time, like
transformative, huh?
they totally are. So, I mean, if you're listening to this and you are thinking like, "Oh, I'm feeling a little bit stuck," or maybe I needed to shake things up a bit, I guess
Hmm.
advice that we have is just, you know, do something for the first time. Doing things for the first time can feel awkward, it can feel uncomfortable, but you just got to put yourself out. You just got to put yourself out there and do something for the first time and embrace the awkwardness of it.
Okay, okay. So, question: do you think that we need first to grow, or is can we still experience transformation through repeated experiences?
That is a big question. Uh, um, I think, yeah, I do think that you need to do things for the first time in order to grow. And I think that, you know, you're never too old to stop learning and you're never too old to start trying new things. And I think that, I mean, I suppose you do grow a little bit if you keep doing the same thing every single day, but I think the growth is exponential when you do things for the first time, like solo traveling or trying a new sport or that sort of thing, for sure. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Oh, I'm right there with you. I think like on your kind of like repeat routine things, it's like this micro growth, which still can be there. I mean, of course, you can have growth through discipline and practicing and whatnot, but I do think like the big life growth that we always kind of reflect back on are the ones where you're out of your comfort zone and trying new things.
And doing something for the first time. And I
Hmm.
guess speaking of first times, we want to challenge all of our listeners to do something this week for the first time, or on your next trip, plan, go to a place you've never been before, or try something you've never done. And we want to hear all about it. So if people want to share their first with us, Morgan, where can they find us on the internet?
Yes, you guys can find us on social media: TikTok, Instagram at The Global Girlfriend. You could also find us on our website, which is theglobalgirlfriend.com. Feel free to send us an email, a DM, comment on one of our posts, or whatever floats your boat. And yeah, we would love to hear how you're kind of saying yes to things in life and getting out of your comfort zone on these adventures.
We would love to hear from you. And one final note to our dedicated listeners, we are currently taking new guests for the Global Girlfriend. So if you want to come on the podcast, or if you have a friend that you think would be amazing as a guest on the podcast, please send them our way. We would love to hear from you or them.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
All right. Bye, guys. Have a great week.
Bye.